And we're live, son. You just tweet this out real quick. Because ain't nobody know where we are.
Yeah, you got that right. Tweeted the parlor too. I don't remember my password into that place. So.
In the parlor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had it. I guess I got an account way back in 2019. Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, I did as well.
And just let it sit there. So what's on the agenda today?
Well, let's see how many people we can get to share this out. Yeah, you gotta let everybody know where we're at, folks. And you can do it from both YouTube and Twitter or wherever else, Slider, whatever other platform we are testing this out on.
Yeah, it's just Periscope and YouTube right now.
Okay.
I got a Facebook Live, but I have yet to key that in to restream. Did you see the video that Trump campaign launched about Joe Biden not remembering what the hell he's going to say?
Was that just recent?
Yeah, that was sometime today.
That would be a new one to me. I don't think I've seen that one yet.
And they had the closed captioning girl signing, and she's just standing there like,
Yeah, I retweeted a couple of good ones on that. Beautiful, stunning silence goes on forever and ever. I mean, the guy is clearly dealing with some cognitive issues. So, all right, folks. Let's see here. Okay, I got us up on Periscope on one device. And I got YouTube up here, so I'll explain to everybody what is going on here. The gentleman to my opposite, let me see why I'm not live here, is Slider Blaze, and this is his channel. And we need you to go ahead and subscribe to this. Because we want to build up his channel. And yes, I like it when I turn my iPad sideways. All the comments are right over your face. And you can see here that this is just a... this is more or less a test run. This is his basic. I guess you would call this like your first go at the studio look. You have a lot more stuff capability wise that you can produce, and I kind of wanted just to start with like this beta thing, but it still looks pretty damn good. Once I get a real webcam, I think things will look a little bit more equal as far as the two of us on here, as far as the clarity of the picture.
Yeah, you got the fish. You look like you're in a bad fish tank.
Yeah, there's not much to be done about that. This is just a regular Mac built-in FaceTime HD cam, and it doesn't clean up well. So yeah, I think the key here is getting everybody to follow the account on the Periscope side,
Hey guys,
And I kind of hinted that we might try this out the other night. Um, that you wouldn't see it coming directly from my Periscope account. So this is the look that we could embellish upon here. And you've got obviously the date is always helpful because I always forget what the hell date it is. So we know when we check in here on this channel, you will see what the conservative political cannibalism is. Our kind of our news topic of the night. We're going to cover a little bit about what's going on with the views that are getting piled up on both the Twitter accounts of the revisionists who want to go back to attacking the Republican Party and kind of deconstruct the unification process that Trump had worked pretty hard on doing, and they're getting a lot of views. And I think that's something we're going to talk about a little bit. We'll get some of Slider's opinion on that. You can see that that's the title that you're going to see on the show, and then under that is a whole lot. I mean, you've got you got a little byline there, and you got a running ticker.
Yeah, I might need to slow that down a little bit.
Yes, speed readers, and that actually helps us not only formulate the topics as we move along, not forget anything or leave anything out. Also helps people formulate their own questions. So if you guys don't follow on, if you guys are not sharing on the Periscope side, then we're probably not going to get a lot of views on the Periscope, which is fine. I mean, I'm just going to leave it up in my timeline. Everybody will realize it. And then you just follow this account. And I'm going to turn it over to you just to explain what To the Republic is for the people that don't know yet. I mean, this has been a project that I think I met with you the first time. It was not like a year ago. You've been working on this thing like a dog, working on it because you saw what a lot of people saw, and I didn't think it was going to come to fruition this fast, but you saw the need for kind of putting together a static construct online in the form of an app because of the crackdown. And we see it now coming in full force from multiple platforms. And if the other platforms like Facebook are lagging behind, they're just getting wrecked right now in Congress by the liberals who are looking to shut even more stuff down. So tell everybody what To the Republic is and what the advantage of spending a year, literally, of your blood, time, and treasure in making this app.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to get done before we really started hammering on it was to get have the ability to live stream right into the app, just in case YouTube wants to take a channel down, just in case Periscope wants to take a channel down. So we won't really have to rely on these platforms in the long term if they want to do that to us. But I wanted to find a mechanism for our grassroots activists to be able to coordinate a message and a narrative online instead of just trying to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. I really didn't think that would go this fast where they just started carte blanche just banning people. I mean, I got banned myself on Twitter for calling somebody a dipshit. And I ended up blocking them, and that's the mechanism that they had in place. If you're being harassed, is just to block somebody, but they just went ahead and totally banned my account. 35,000 followers, gone.
Yeah. So
I really wanted to be able to hone a message online, since we got problems with deboosting on Facebook, suppression algorithms. I mean, you just name it. All kinds of shit going on. So it'd be easy for us to be able to basically trend things online if everybody was using the hashtag. So in these articles that we have on our what's called the live feed, it comes with the hashtag already in it. So we're not using like 8 different ones. Like I don't know if anybody has ever watched the trending and how the left use it, but they got it down to a science where they'll trend stuff all day long. And we'll be like so happy when one thing gets trended. But usually when something gets trended, it's actually from Trump tweeting it out. Like he tweeted out Spygate. Well, that Spygate is now a keyword, and that keyword can trend. So all the media was putting that in their headlines, and then Spygate trended. But when we start trying to trend things online, which is my biggest knock on conservative media, is they don't stick names in their headlines. They'll say like FBI official, blah, 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 but they never name the FBI official. Well, nothing in that headline is ever going to trend unless you name the name. So I built this to have a mechanism for our grassroots to be able to coordinate a message online without actually getting banned, because you can't do that on their platforms. You can't say, hey, we're going to attack this person and we're going to put this narrative. They will ban you.
Yeah, that's abuse. Yeah, they'll go after you.
Right. But if you stick it out on a third party, which is my app, they can't do anything about it because I'm not using any of their APIs. I'm using the share sheet that comes with the operating system of your phone.
So essentially, and I've done this a couple of times, when you were doing your beta runs on the breaking news stuff, you click on, when you open the app up and you click on the news and you click on the article that you have. Most of it's just, you're putting your little blog spot up there, breaking news stuff. When I didn't have to do anything, I just click on it to tweet it, and it already has the hashtags built in,
right.
Which is, that's the way we have to do it, because at Twitter, if you look or have been involved in Twitter long enough, they're really devious about trending conservative hashtag. What they do is they'll purposefully lock in a misspelling of the hashtag when you go to
right.
start it. They'll put in a misspelled version of the hashtag, or 3 different versions of the hashtag will come up, and that's to throw people off from getting it actually trending even for one day. And so you kind of take all that away, and which is nice, and you could kind of share the story with the built-in hashtag, and that way you get a lot more bang for your buck on the daily trends.
Right. Yeah, we'll have the website is going under maintenance. I'm doing a server migration, so hopefully by the next time we do this, everything will be full speed up and running. Including live streaming, because that has to be, I have to do an update approved by the App Store, which should take probably another day or two.
That's the real key, is we're looking at a potentially immediate future where live streaming could get crippled pretty quickly with a suspended Twitter account, something of that, or somebody tag teaming your YouTube channel, your Periscope channel. I mean, I think that's only going to get more intense, and they're just, that's coming from the right and the left. We have our own little problem children in the right movement, and then of course the left is going to hold back as long as they can on certain things, and then come after certain people they deem influential. And then you wake up and one day you're Stefan Molyneux and you have no
right.
YouTube channel anymore. You got a website, and I guess you can do what you can from there. But when you have an app and you work with Apple, and you work with what it takes to, not violate whatever it is in their TOS,
and that's always changing.
It's a long process. I mean, that's what's taken so long for you to get this thing done. And the least we can do, I mean, I think people are going to be a little bit surprised that all this work that you put into this, it's still a relatively small, it's like buying a beer at a bar to download your app. And I think that's insurance. That's like one of the cheapest insurance policies you can ever have, as far as access to, for me, it's an insurance policy. And I've been working with Slider because not necessarily to jump on full time with exclusive content, but know that if I had to, that conversation that I've been having with him is to know that my access, my influence could be pretty much just snuffed out overnight with some vague Periscope complaint, shutting my channel down, kicking me off Twitter. Where then all of a sudden, where am I at? So instead of me going to night school and trying to figure out all of the technical aspects of getting all this stuff together, why not work with somebody who lives right down the road from me? Literally, we live within 45 minutes of each other. We've met each other multiple occasions. I think we have established a level of trust, which in case you don't know me, And the people that I have interfaced with over the last 4 years, meeting somebody and getting to know them and having them local is a great deal of a trust building exercise for me, because pretty much everyone in this world of conservative political punditry, 99% of them have some kind of mental defect. And it's rare that you see somebody put their own time and treasure into trying to build something that is not just for the political commentary, but for the actual education. Because what we have is we have a shit ton of low information voters, and you can see it now. I mean, it's part of this cannibalistic urge for people to get angry at what's going on. Okay, why is everybody getting it? Why does Tucker Carlson have record ratings all of a sudden? Because Tucker has figured out what he's always known and believed, is that the Republican Party is never going to go full bore. He never trusted that Donald Trump was going to be the guy that could unleash the inner bravado of the Republican Party that has gone dormant since the 80s of Reagan. And even then, we really didn't have too many congressional heroes during the Reagan era. So what's happening now is you've got Tucker Carlson and a lot of Twitter personalities that claim to be Trump supporters, but don't really come off that way. They're all taking their anger out in an internal fashion. And because people are so mad, so frustrated that this stinking virus will not go away, and that it's basically like, the cops that show up at the party to shut it down, and everybody's pissed. The prospect of secondary shutdowns in red states have people like basically gnashing their teeth. There's a shitload of pent-up anxiety about the presidential election. There's this simplistic, rudimentary, anti-intellectual notion that Trump can assert federal authority on every single issue of criminality in our cities that are governed completely and solely by Democrats, and that simply is not the case. So what he's doing is he's tapping into all of that, and you can see that the viewership that would typically be more inclined to watch Sean Hannity is starting to drift into the 8 o'clock time zone, or the 8 o'clock time slot for Tucker Carlson. And it is not a coincidence. Not because Tucker's content has improved. It's not as if Tucker has changed who he was. I mean, Tucker is a registered Democrat. He chooses to live in D.C. He knows that limits his availability to Main Street sensibilities or realities. He's very just cultured in the ways of the Beltway. And besides being a registered Democrat, he's also one of these Rand Paul light libertarian types who literally sat out the 2004 election, which was a very tight re-election, which was for a lot of social issues were on the ballot that libertarians did not give one shit about. Gay marriage and abortion being two of them. He literally did not vote in 2004 because he could not bring himself to vote for George W. Bush. Now, looking back on how bad George W. Bush was as a president, it still, with John Kerry, have been an improvement. So knowing, if you have these types of proclivities in your past, and you've worked for networks like CNN and MSNBC for long periods of your career, as he has, if you work for a publication that was owned by the Koch brothers industries, which he has, you start to learn that Tucker has tendencies. And why should we be so ignorant that these tendencies have all of a sudden changed? That his main concern is for the betterment of the Republican Party, that there's some purification process by some puritanical ritual straight out of a Freemason degree, that we're all going to just get on the same page, and all of a sudden Republicans are going to understand that they have this incredible extra constitutional authority to quell all of our problems, which of course doesn't exist. So what he's doing is masterfully tapping into the anger, the frustration of the average Trump voter. The real struggle we have with that is that we have a lot of high intensity, low information voters, and they get easily swayed because they have not paid attention to politics for the last 20, 30 years of their lives. They got swept up into the MAGA, Trump, America First wave, but that doesn't come through osmosis with knowledge about how government works. So what we did was we just started giving them an unfortunate glimpse into how it works in Washington, D.C. And by how it works, it doesn't work. It's almost designed that way by the framers not to work. And everybody has constraints in Articles 1, 2, and 3. And the separation of powers is a very powerful element within government, no matter who is in the Oval Office. So I think it's I don't know what your opinions are about it, but what I see, and I want everybody to know, is that 90% of what I'm watching on this Tucker crusade is weapons turned inward. And this misnomer of puritanical politics, we can get back to where we need to be as Republicans, which is absolute horseshit. The limitations, I could spend 3-4 hours on it. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about the tutorial side of what To the Republic app is, and of which is wholly owned by Mr. Slider over there. I have nothing in this vested other than my best wishes and hopes, and maybe down the line some content. But I will tell you that we've got to have a tool on and offline that people can access to not only debunk the ridiculous narratives that tend to crop up inside of our own Trump circles on Twitter and on the left, but also have tools. Just because you were a low information, high intensity voter in 2016 and hadn't voted maybe for 4, 8, 12 years, doesn't mean you need to stay that way. It's not that hard. It's basically a 1, 2, 3, 4 process. It's not that changed from the 1930s in the way that we enlist and activate and move grassroots politics down. The only thing that's changed is the technology. It still requires hands, feet, and eyeballs to make sure that the process is working right. And I just wanted to get on and give this a dry run, but also give a sermon that I just gave, that Tucker Carlson is my focus right now. It's not that all these other Twitter accounts aren't worth it, but he's the titular head, the figurehead of this cannibalistic, eat your own, circular firing squad move in the Republican Party, and it could not, in my opinion, come at a worse time. So, I'll leave it to you, Slider, if you want to give your take on that.
Yeah, it's not the left that's ruled by emotion, it's the right as well. And I understand, you want to see the left get blown over with a water cannon, I'd laugh, but just the optics of that alone would be played on a loop from now until Election Day. And that's just not a good scene. Right now we have the left's violence that we're going to be playing on a loop until Election Day. You don't want to give them an inch in that respect at all. Because, we've been trying to paint the left as this violent, kooky, basically a subset of a subculture with Antifa, and you got the Black Lives Matter, and that has now come to fruition. So everything we've been saying since 2016, when it first reared its head, at the Trump rallies where there was violence, has now been put on display on your television for all of these independent voters to watch and look. And I don't really gauge how people feel on my Twitter timeline, because that's generally all like-minded thinking individuals. But I go to my Facebook. Yes, I still have a Facebook. Because all of these people I went to school with, all of these people I have worked with, friends of friends, and I kind of gauge where people are based off of that. And people are pissed. But the people who are there aren't pissed at Trump. Right? I've got independents who didn't vote for Trump saying that they're voting for Trump. I've had people DM me from haven't talked to maybe in basically since the last election, where they were railing on me about these Black Lives Matter, when they were trying to resegregate themselves, the white people kowtowing, and now all of a sudden they're like, yeah, you know what, you were right. So that's where I gauge like where the public kind of stands on these issues.
I think the frustration is not unmerited. It's just the fact that they don't quite understand the limitations about directly dealing with it.
Right.
And I don't. I guess there's a. I think we've talked about this many times about the catharsis people would experience in some of our, the hardcore base. That you right, they just want to see high-powered hoses, flashbangs, tear gas, dogs, mounted police running these people down, and that's essentially taking away the high road that you would have by saying these are Democrat-run cities, Democrat-run protesters and organizations, and left-wing and anarchists and nihilists and weirdos, but they're also interspersed with enough of this Black Lives Matters personnel that it makes it almost unseemly or impossible to go in there with a degree of force. The media is going to concentrate on the African Americans in the group that are getting pushed, beaten, arrested, and that's just going to compound the problems. I mean, whether people like it or not, the issue of police enforcement, the issue of police, I'm not going to call it brutality, because I think that's just getting into their narrative, but it is an escalation of force, I guess you could say. I don't think people are looking at this rationally. I've got a family full of cops. I'm sure you know some cops. Most every cop you're ever going to run into is more likely to save your life than end your life.
Right.
But the reality is, if you recall, a few years ago, we had a rash of incidents where cars were fleeing the police at high speed, and there were a lot of police departments around the country that were looking at the collateral damage, the civilian damage, the pedestrian damage, the other vehicles on the street. They were looking at this, and they knew, with eyes in the sky, radioing up to the next town, that they could catch these guys, and they could lay strips out and blow the tires. And there became a change in philosophy over the last 20 to 10 years on how police handle high-speed chases, not only for the safety of the police officers, but for the safety of the bystanders who were, unintentionally getting swept up in this. So this isn't unheard of, that we want to look at the chokehold and decide maybe the chokehold is something that we're going to equate to the use of deadly force, which means it's outlawed only to the extent where the cop cannot reach his weapon or discharge his weapon safely in some environment with a lot of civilians around, that he has to detain the situation by using the chokehold. So, I mean, what I just did was, as I just started a conversation, a realistic conversation. Nobody's nerves should be frayed. No, blue line folks should get upset at this. This is a conversation. I'm not ceding this is a racial inequality issue. I'm not saying that, we need to treat black perpetrators or suspects in a different manner. I think that's a load of horse shit. I think the cops can be trained differently if we find through empirical data that there are problems. And that's what you call a conversation. What's going on in this country right now is not a conversation. It's not the start of a conversation. It's not an olive branch. It's not a discussion. It's a monologue blasted through Al Sharpton's megaphone. And the police cuts that they're talking about all over the country here, particularly New York, LA, these police cuts are not only punitive to the police because they're on the political spear getting roasted right now, like they're on a spit, but it's also reflective of the fact that the administration, the Senate, have no desire to bail out these blue states from the effects of what they claim to be the effects of the COVID-19, because they are poorly run states that don't contribute to their pension funds and that don't, have a good record of keeping up services with taxation levels. So this is just a cheap excuse to backfill some budget holes, man. And they're using the cops to do it. It is like the ultimate example of political expediency. And we should be irate about it. But again, New York City is New York City. And if you live there, I understand that it's not easy to pick up and move, but you also have to understand, for the rest of us, we don't see it, we don't smell it, we don't feel the impacts of it, and it does not matter to the president's electoral chances on November 3rd. So there's really a limitation on what we want the president to do in these situations. Same thing goes for Seattle. Same thing goes for Chicago. I mean, these are not states that we're going to compete well in. We're going to lose them in the presidential sense. And they all are poorly run by, I'm loath to call them even Democrats anymore, Slider, because to me, they are socialist, or at least identify strongly with socialism. Why would the Trump administration, and how would they handle these situations in a way that would give Tucker Carlson confidence?
Is it even possible?
Not legally,
Yes.
nor constitutionally.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to that.
Well, good. That means I didn't really botch the point I was trying to make, and that is that the president is in a rough spot right now. He's in a really. You don't think he's frustrated? I mean, here's a guy that was also pent up for 3 months. He's pulling his hair out, and that's not a good thing. Can't afford to do that. And he decides that he's going to take out some of his frustration via his Twitter account, which, as we all know, the angrier Donald Trump is, the less discerning he is with his Twitter account. And here's a guy that's about ready to go out for a round of golf, which I know he's played 200 some, but not over the last 3-4 months. I mean, it's been pretty tight. Schedule's been pretty tight. He gets out at one of his courses in Virginia, but before he goes out, he fires out the now infamous white power tweet, which is, maybe if he didn't, I know you saw the clip, Slider, and I think the only way you miss the white power part, which is repeated, I think 2 times at least, pretty loudly, is if you, and this is the case a lot of times, if you don't open up the tweet itself, you will not hear the audio. So it's quite possible that Trump had just seen the footage where you can see that it's fairly contentious and combative, and you can see that one side's pro-Trump in the villages and the other side is not. So it's quite possible that he didn't hear any of the audio. And there is no way that that gentleman raised fist looked like a white power salute thing to me. And if you go back and listen to the content of the video, the woman yells white power to this man, and he repeats it back almost in jest. But that doesn't excuse it. It doesn't excuse it for me to tweet it, or you to tweet it, or anybody to tweet it, never mind the leader of the free world. So these are what we call devastating self-inflicted wounds. And when Trump is forced to confront the fact that there is no one to blame but himself, he gets withdrawn. He gets upset, withdrawn, and he has the inability to reconcile a mistake made by him and moving on past it in an effective way. It's just his personality, which means he's so ultra competitive that he'll go toe to toe with anybody on his side or the other side. But when it's him and it's his mistake, it digs from every account that I have of the president himself. This is the hardest thing for him to overcome, because he almost goes into a state of denial on other things as well. And for this to happen on the heels of the, I wouldn't call it a snafu, but it was a problematic Tulsa, Oklahoma appearance where, when Brad Parscale says we have 1 million ticket requests, what that means is you got the email, right?
Mm-hmm.
Slider, I got the email.
Got
we
it.
all got an email to sign up for the Tulsa, Oklahoma. And 1 million people, knowing they weren't going to go, signed up knowing that their information was going to be there so that they could potentially get recontacted by the campaign for every single other event that might happen. And so yet the press disingenuously tells everybody that, yeah, they expected 1 million people to descend upon Tulsa, Oklahoma. First of all, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Anybody who's ever been to Oklahoma knows that 1 million people aren't going anywhere. That's not going to happen. The most people that go anywhere in Oklahoma at any one time is the Red River game, probably with Texas or something of that nature. It's not going to happen. So we had all these people outside that were disrupting the entrances, which were narrowed because everyone had to get a temperature scan before going in there. And it was blocked by Antifa, blocked by Black Lives Matter. Secret Service was overwhelmed. So we have 12,000 people that went through metal detectors, and they're saying 6,000 inside the arena. Pointless. We end up with 6 staffers and 2 Secret Service members with the diagnosis of COVID-19, further infuriating the president. So he's not in a good place, mentally right now, and that is entirely understandable. It's a bad stretch. And who swoops in like a scavenger at a moment when the president is vulnerable? Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson decides, you know what, I'm not going to call the crazy professor from California University that says that whites should kill themselves, his usual shit, you know what I mean? Like, he's not going to call somebody who is going to get on there and talk about the earth being flat. He's gonna call out every Republican that doesn't meet his puritanical litmus test. And I'm telling you, that's a great way to tap into the frustrations of Republicans. It's a great way to extend a 7-8 point Biden lead to 10 or 11 points. And he knows that. I believe at this point, I can't tell you that Tucker supports the reelection of this president. And before you say, well, that's ridiculous, Tucker would never not vote for Trump. I repeat, Tucker has publicly said he sat out the 2004, the very razor-thin, close 2004 reelection of George Bush versus John Kerry. He has admitted that he sat out that election and did not vote. So, past meaning pretty good indicator of present. What makes you think he wouldn't do that again?
I don't know. I stopped watching a lot of these people. I generally watch Hannity and Tucker for the guests that they have on. That's pretty much what I'm limited to right now.
Take a look at some questions. Yeah, if you're watching YouTube at the same time you're watching Periscope, you're going to see a little bit of a lag between the two, and that's just normal because this is our literally, breaking the champagne bottle, bon voyage moment here on this thing. So it's a matter of setting up the OBS to be responsive to how each one by the frames on each one of these things, and that's something that you just literally got the final piece for the PC there. I know over this week, so I'm going to give you a little break on this one because I don't know how the hell to fix any of this stuff.
You had to go down to DC to get it.
This world has turned into like a black market world with this damn virus. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, because everything wouldn't have been shipped until the last week of July.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, Turbine. It's one of the reasons that I spoke with Slider about this because we can switch. We'll switch over to a couple other platforms as well, maybe as we go along. People just they're getting pissed and they're leaving certain platforms, and by doing that, they're basically funneling themselves down into a smaller information channel. And so, realistically, this is it's more or less an infomercial, if you will, to convince, I think, a lot of you that go to Apple on your iPhone and just and download the app. I mean, literally, not expensive, not hard. It's something that you can do now or next week or whatever. It's been being worked on all the time. The closer we get, according to reports that I have online, is Tucker Carlson is a registered Democrat, or was in 2017. So if Tucker has switched back to Republican, that is a development that has happened in 2017. And he claims that he was a registered Democrat because he needed to vote in the mayoral races in D.C., and the only way he could do that was as a member of the Democrat Party. So, obviously I know Tucker's a libertarian, but yeah, and that's another thing is people are quickly discovering that Parler is not the panacea of freedom that they thought it was going to be. Thousands, I've heard tens of thousands of accounts have already been closed down, kicked out. Drudge is all over it, reporting about it. Drudge is like BuzzFeed now. If you've read the terms of service agreement with Parler, it is not boilerplate. Don't listen to anybody who tells you that. If you read it, it literally puts you on the hook for legal fees to defend not only yourself if you get sued for something you put on Parler, but you must defend Parler with your attorneys as well, which is something I've never seen, and talked to a couple of lawyers who said they've never seen that either. So Parler's got some pretty sneaky language in there, and imagine the liability insurance that is when your lawyers get away with that shit, right? And they brought in like 500,000 new people recently, not realizing that they're basically signing on to defend themselves and Parler if somebody sues them for content. So if I'm Carpe, if I'm Logan Cook, if I'm Carpe Diem and I go over there and make that my new home, I want to be real clear with Parler that I can be sued for any content that someone thinks is a copyright violation. And not only do I have to defend myself in court, I have to defend Parler for allowing me to post it. So I would say to my good friend Logan, check out, talk to Ron Coleman about that. I think Parler could be a definite Trojan horse in that respect, because I think the only way you get up and running on one of these platforms is to cut some corners, and that certainly looks like a hell of a corner cut by the folks at Parler.
Damn, I did not know that.
Not good. Yeah, take a look at that.
Yeah, I know they got a huge bump from Dan Bongino, who I guess is now partnered with.
Bet you didn't bother to
Probably not.
read the fine print. So it'd be helpful to us if you would, not us, but necessarily, I plan on using this every now and then to be on here and see if we can build something here on these channels here. Because my YouTube channel is mothballed because I don't trust anyone, and I can rename it, I can use it. The subscribers are mine. 2.4 thousand subscribers. I may do something with that, but for now, it's just not worth it for me to do that. So if I want to reach multiple platforms, this is the way I'm going to do it for now. And so you got to subscribe to the Republic app, and it's not that hard. We got 163. By the end of this show, I would hope it's over 200, and then we can move on from there. And you hit the little bell, and you'll know when we're on. And So we got one question on here. Where do we go? I was suspended by Twitter Sunday. This is my backup account. Well, you're still here. And that's kind of Twitter's Achilles heel, is they have a tough time with smaller accounts, dealing with IP zaps and things like that. In the case of Slider, I think how many followers did you have?
35,500.
Yeah, 35.5 is big, and that was wiped out, and that's a hard thing to build back from. So, yeah, you can go to Parler, but I can tell you that Parler is not going to be a friendly place for the left to come in and debate. They're going to be shut down. It's essentially a, I don't know, echo chamber, really, from what I know. I'm not knocking it. You can get to the Republic app on Google Play through Android. Okay, thanks, Jen. Yeah, you got all your bases covered on that stuff, right, Slider?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I did build a BlackBerry app, but who uses BlackBerry anymore?
Nah, nobody. So the app, we're talking about once you have embed capabilities on live streaming. I mean, it is almost like the Twitter bunker, which allows Twitter, Periscope, YouTube bunker mentality that allows you to continue to get the message out, and it's almost like a place that you can go, like a fallout shelter for everybody. If it happens to me, if it happens to you, or wherever, we still have to, like everybody does, right? You still have to follow the terms of services, but are you going to have the same umbrella of protections of your content that Alex Jones does on his own app?
Yeah, I mean, I can put whatever I want on there as long as I'm not, doing something stupid.
Which Alex Jones frequently does, but
He does.
they haven't seemed to remove him from that form. He's done everywhere else. Like everywhere else, he's been wiped out. But that construct, that app that he spent all that time and money building, was a hell of an insurance policy for him. It's the only thing keeping him afloat. So, but you know what? I was not an alarmist for a long time with this. I just did not think that they would go into this hyper-partisan political atmosphere and be as just over the top with how they're handling this. I mean, they're vilifying and just using the slightest thing to get rid of accounts and erase people, make them unpersons. I think it's happening in a way that some people said it would unfold as we got closer to the election. I thought they were smarter than that, but now I see the political pressure that Zuckerberg is under, and it's unreal. It shows you that this is a concerted effort. No, this is not replacing Dixie Cup Nation. Dixie Cup Nation has always been my hope to get Dixie Cup Nation back to a Saturday Night Live, where I will do my thing with the Dixie Cups hanging above. And they're really not Dixie Cups. People keep asking me if I'm going to be forced to change my name. Dixie Cups are different than Red Solo Cups. So what I do drink out of is Red Solo Cups. And Dixie Cups go all the way back. I remember researching Dixie Cups when I first got started. And Dixie Cups are actually the little paper cups. They kind of emerged back in the early 1900s with the water tanks and the water fountain cups, and they were eventually made right here, not too far away from where Slider and I are, in Easton, PA. We're right outside of Allentown, PA. So Dixie is still a brand name, and they make a lot of cups, but it is not, in fact, what I drink out of. So, but I've kept the name, and of course, I'm not going to change the name. I don't think, unless the South basically reinstitutes slavery, I don't think Periscope's going to shut my account down for Dixie Cup Nation reasons. But Saturday Night Live, SNL, has been a mainstay for me since the late 2016. Not something I plan on getting away from. It's the breaking news nights that could happen on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Thursday thing that I think that it might be better for me to go to multiple platforms, and it might actually lead to some, some developmental stuff as the app goes forward, because I've been working, like I said, this isn't like something like Slider called me up last week and said, hey, I got an app. No, this has been something that we've been talking about since last year. I've been monitoring it. He's been sharing it with me. We had a pretty good run over some news breaking periods where, like I said, the tweets were working well. I would go to the app, click on the story, tweet it out, and then the hashtags were already there with the tweet. It was just really convenient, and it wasn't the bloated, overly worded nonsense that you got from like Gateway Pundit, or stealing content from other people like Gateway, or other people like that. Who the hell is that guy? The guy that got arrested by the FBI, but he claimed he was an FBI agent.
That Thomas Paine fella?
Thomas Paine.
True Pundit, that's who it is.
Yeah, True Pundit. Worthless, ridiculous sites. None of that stuff. Is this broadcast on the app? Not with live streaming is not available yet. You got to jump through a lot of hoops when you work with people like Apple, and you have your app there. And I think that's currently what he's working on.
Yeah, it's just waiting to. It was submitted. It's just waiting for approval. It usually takes a day or two. I did it on a Saturday, so you can't count Saturday, can't count Sunday. So sometime this week it should be approved.
Which would leave me the ability, if I want to do a 15-minute spot on something, I can record it on my laptop. I can shoot a video off anytime I want, and it could be on that app. And depending on where you are, what you're doing, and when you keep notifications off for these other basic platforms, there's a way to just you'll get maybe a notification or check in on To the Republic app, and maybe you'll see a 15-minute clip of me talking, or maybe even Sliders responding to some fake news. And I think people want the nuggets of information, and they want them in a timely manner. I mean, they just, honest to God, what I hear most from people is, I just saw this news report on Fox. Tell me what it means. And then I don't blame them, because it is not really articulated as news. It's kind of the new direction that Fox News is going, which is really strange. And it's watching Donna Brazile on the 5, and watching how cavalier she is in going after the other people, it just shows how pent up her anger is. Watching Juan Williams most of the time try to keep himself under control, just screaming and berating and cursing, as she did again tonight. The direction of Fox News is just Bill Hemmer. Bill Hemmer, to me, is starting to sound like Ed Henry. And so you might catch a bit of the story, and you might say to yourself, I can't understand what I just heard. Is this bad? What does it mean? And that's the kind of time where I could, flip open my laptop, do 10 minutes on the subject, and, it could be on my timeline, but I can also shoot it off to Slider for To the Republic. I mean, so To the Republic is, I think, right now the anchor that I feel this entire group needs. And if I didn't trust him, and if his app cost $25 a month, I would be a lot more up his ass with a flashlight. But the fact that I know how much money and time he's put into this thing, it's really incredible that you can do this, and it's almost like altruism to me. But for the fact that people can get this for like what you would pay for an IPA downtown Harrisburg as an app is just amazing to me. So it's also embedded. It's anchored. It's something that we're not as likely to lose access to as we are to everything else. And I just think Carpe shook me to the core, man. I mean, it was like you knew that he was always going to skate on the line, but you thought that there was a mechanism for awareness, alerts from the provider, from the publication, from the forum, from the whatever it is, and to know that in this case, Twitter can just come down like a guillotine on a guy that had 270,000 followers and was getting retweeted on a weekly basis by the president of the United States. I mean, that woke me up.
Yeah, that would bum me out. I mean, I was bummed out with 35,000 followers. I can't even imagine. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Oh, yeah, I think that's an understatement. I mean, he was clearly took time to master his trade versus some other people. You know, the pretenders and the contenders never really spent the money that they were getting from people on updating. And you're somebody that knows the quality of the software is not cheap. I mean, if you really want something to look good, you gotta pay up. And in the case of Carpe, he used a lot of his early support to get the software upgrades that he needed to get. That's why his stuff was better. But that wasn't it. That wasn't what completely separated him from everybody else. It was the imagination that went into it. He had a clear cinematic imagination that he could put things together and do it with a sense of humor and a point, not just slapping heads over movie scenes. So, I mean, I think it's just it was just shocking and rocking to to see it just cut off, just cut off like a gangrenous limb, and a news report or two, and then that's it. It's over. And now instead of spending time suing Twitter, conveniently, the copyright holders who enabled Twitter to ban Logan were the two parents of the small toddlers, the African American and the white toddler that he made the video out of, making fun of CNN. They're now making money on that video in commercials. I saw it on a hospital system commercial. So now that they're making money, they have really cracked down on the copyright usage of it. And they're the ones that basically sent the wolf pack after Carpe. So now Carpe, instead of worrying about getting back on Twitter, he has to hire Ron Coleman. Maybe Ron's doing it on pro bono, I don't know, to fight off $1 million lawsuit from these parents for using that video clip. And that's pretty messed up. And that's why I think you all want to go and read the Parler terms of service again, because if this had been an issue on Parler, from the way I read the terms of service agreement, not only would Ron Coleman be defending Carpe, he'd be defending Parler, because that's the way that they have it written in the terms of service. And that, to me, I just think is pushing the bounds of legality there.
Yeah, so it was actually my sister's friends in New York was friends with the father of one of those kids. And she had posted on Facebook that they were pissed that he had used it.
Again, I mean, it was the second time around
Right.
that got him.
Yeah, it was the second.
You know why? Because the first time they didn't. They just had it out on Facebook, and they knew it was a popular clip. But now you can see it's being sold for commercial purposes, and that's where now you elevate your legal sense of copyright, and that's what nailed them. Because while it was being used on commercials, by companies and businesses and enterprises like this hospital system. Now it's got value, real value, monetized value, so they can use that for actual damages, and that's how they can get some big numbers. By the times it was viewed on Twitter versus the times it's viewed on network television as part of a commercial, they can come up with a rather large, punitive on the other side, but an actual damages. I'm on Parler and Twitter. Please, Adam, go on Parler too. At this time, I will not go on Parler until Parler changes their terms of service. I'm not going to defend Parler in court for anything that I might overstep on. And I think Parler is an echo chamber, and I'm not going to be part of this whole leave the battlefield thing. I'm on the battlefield. I've been doing this for 4 years. I never did any social media. I don't have a Facebook. I don't have anything else. I don't have Instagram. Twitter is where I put the fight, and most of that fight comes from, unfortunately, people in Republican circles that don't understand the Constitution, and that's really unfortunate. But it's important that I do that too, because you don't want to lose voters. And a lot of people are so disillusioned right now. They are just absolutely. I know some people that are like crestfallen. I mean, they're believing every poll, which in some cases are not even just registered voters, which we're much more likely on the Republican side as registered voters to vote, but they're just surveying adults, households, not even checking to see if they're registered to vote. It's an absurd way to inflate the deficits in the polls. But you can be sure of one thing: Donald Trump. People have always ascribed that he would be a hell of a poker player. I now know that to not be true. He's not a guy that he can bluff, but I don't know about winning the bluff. And he's a little bit in between himself and his staff on the internal numbers that he's forced to deal with. So he knows that something's got to change. But I would beseech the Tucker fans out there not to let Tucker Carlson dictate or try to dictate what the president has to do to win back independent, moderate voters. That is where the shedding is occurring. It is not occurring in the base. The base is aggravated. The base is, in some cases, upset that we haven't been tough enough as Republicans. But in no way are they saying Biden might be an option or sitting home because Trump hasn't done what he promised to do. It's important that you do not get so far into yourself, so far up your own ass, that you forget that the people that live in the counties right outside of Philadelphia, the counties right outside of Miami-Dade, the counties right outside Detroit or Oakland and those counties up there, in states where we need to win. You don't want to inflame or drive up voter turnout in these areas. And that's exactly what the left is tempting you to do by getting Trump to respond like a tyrant and to overstep normal federal responses. This isn't 1967. It's not 1968. If you think it is, you need to go back and watch what actually went down in 1967 and 68. It's just not the same. And these are relatively contained, small pockets of urban violence. And with the lack of cooperation between Democrat administrations in these cities and states and their local police departments and state police departments, why the hell would we send federalized National Guardsmen in there to try to handle the situation? With live ammunition? Bad idea. Bad idea, bad idea, bad idea. One thing goes wrong, that's the end of it. That's all they want, man. They want a life lost. They're willing to sacrifice a life over a statue. They want Trump to authorize use of force against someone engaged in quote unquote peaceful protesting or statue removal, because that's the ultimate winner for them. Once Trump is in a position of authority to exercise the use of force that leads to someone's death, they can truly raise the banner that he is the most divisive president ever, and that he didn't accidentally retweet white power. He believes in white power. And as absurd as that is, all you need is a microfraction of jittery, independent, moderate suburban voters to believe it. And you may very well lose states like Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. You can't afford to lose more than 2 of those and win re-election. You always have to be thinking political math, not with your gut. Emotionalism is the opposite of applied politics. I'm sorry, that's just the truth. I mean, when you're making decisions based on emotion, they are statistically less likely to work out in your favor over the long term, and that is applied twofold, threefold in politics. And that's what you're asking the president to do. You're asking the president to get emotional about it. You're asking the president to get up there and say strongly worded things about Black Lives Matter. Here's a man who just erroneously fired out a tweet with some fogey in the villages yelling out white power. Here's a man who they're still lying about his comments after Charlottesville, saying that there were good sides on both people, good people on both sides. Still dealing with that lie. Now you want this rich white man to stand up and attack Black Lives Matter. It's just not politic. It would make you feel better, but it would not gain votes. I hope I'm making myself clear to people. I don't like to beat dead horses, but the horse ain't dead if you're still riding it. And I'm looking on Twitter and I see people still riding that damn horse. All right? So.
Yeah, it's like attacking Dr. Fauci. Like, you spent 2-3 months attacking Fauci, and he still has a 73% approval rating.
And he's been wrong and right in equal degrees. So he doesn't know what the hell's going on either. Nobody does. It is unbelievable listening to him testify today. It is completely antithetical to the things that were said 2 months ago. It's time to stop letting Joe Biden get away with attacking Trump for waving the white flag of surrender against the coronavirus. Well, listen, waving the red flag of alarmism has been going on since March by Anthony Fauci. And I ask you, what good has that done? But I'll tell you one thing. This is another part of our Republican erosion of support within the base, is they're frustrated that Trump hasn't done more to force blue state governors to open everything up. They're frustrated that Abbott in Texas and DeSantis have to close some bars and some beaches. Can we all agree on one thing? That this stupid, I'm going to try to watch my language here, but who cares? But this fickle little virus that we're dealing with here is not going away, wasn't going to go away. we flatten the curve in places where it would have overwhelmed. And now looking back at the deaths in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, looking back, you don't need to be in actuarial science to know that it would have been overwhelming and it would have been a really bad time for America. And the rest of the country decided at one point, listen to the White House, everybody stays home for 30 days, 30 days to slow the spread. And this is exactly what it did. And we more or less never promised anybody anything more than that. It was that when we reemerged after the 30 days, that we would try to do it responsibly, but that we'd all be more apt to pick up the virus, right? I mean, that was never distorted. It was never, the hope was that this would act like a seasonal flu and go away with the heat and the humidity, which it has not. The hope was that it would not have, an unstable nucleus and not mutate all over the place, but that hasn't been the case. It has mutated rather. So we got to deal with it. And all these people that say that blame the president for handling the virus as a serious issue, that boggles my mind. What do you think would have happened if we didn't take that 30-day pause? That stuff would be where it's at right now, all at the same time.
Yeah, they're not familiar with the concept of exponential growth. Like, they're
No,
always comparing it to the
exactly.
flu, but the flu, what you're going to do over a whole season, this will do in just, 6 months, half the time. So what do you expect to do? You're just going to stay open, throw caution in the wind, and then get ran over? I mean, have you ignored, they're ignoring Brazil. Remember, they're touting
Yeah,
Brazil. Oh, they didn't close. Well, look at Brazil now.
yeah. Brazil still. I mean, they basically are ready to get rid of Bolsonaro because of
Right?
this whole thing. The Sweden model ended up being 7, 8 times higher than the other Scandinavian countries. But listen, I'm not here to argue that we all need to shut down businesses. I'm just saying, don't rewrite history that Donald Trump somehow got suckered by Dr. Birx
Right.
and Dr. Fauci, because that doesn't make any sense at all. If you did not stop what was going on in the early days in California, Seattle, and New York, I mean, we would have got wiped out all the way through Pennsylvania and Ohio down the Appalachians. I mean, it would have been all at one time, all within weeks, all within that 30-day period. You would have had all this going on. I mean, it would have crippled the economy. It would have so that this notion out there that the economy was crippled by the deliberate actions to slow the spread is ignoring the reality that there was going to be economic damage at least that much if we let the thing go unfettered. I mean, you can't have it both ways. You just
Right.
can't.
Jen's asking, explain the newest Russian story. I guess that's the mercenary shit.
Oh, I did promise to get into that. So, what happened is this is just more deep state hysteria. That I don't think this is the end. I think I tweeted that this is the beginning of the end of their plans. They're going to start to modify and put into place a lot of these things that John Bolton put into motion while he was there, and that is that they'll make Russia a talking point again. And so what happened was, from as far as we can tell from all reporting sources, that there was a leaker, a criminal leaker, that the actionable intelligence it was not. It had not been reviewed enough to the point where it was seen by multiple agencies and the DOD and construed to be or assessed to be likely or in need of response from the president. They get 10,000 files probably produced in a single week, all across every State Department, every CIA station chief, all over the world. And they get all kinds of people looking for money, kickbacks, protections from America and their consulates and their embassies and their people that work with them, or all their cultivating sources. All that stuff gets filtered through eventually, and it goes through a convoluted system where it ends up finally through the ODNI office, and then eventually to the NSC. And the NSC only gets what's close to a finished product, which means you've got 2/3 of the agency assessments agree that this is a highly likely to occur or have occurred, or whatever verbiage they want to use. So at this point, we have confirmed through the CIA, and I'll tell you, I think Gina Haspel, head of the CIA, put out her first statement or tweet that I've seen since she got in there, consistent with the NSC's tweet and the DOD's statement. There has been no presentation of actionable intelligence to the president, meaning that even if it were some subset paragraph written down in a PD, a presidential daily briefing, if it's not verbalized to the president by O'Brien, the national security advisor, it's not actionable yet. So if the president is monitoring something that's going on, if the NSC feels that there's intelligence that's conflicted, it is not yet verified to a degree that they need of certitude. What they will occasionally do is put it in the presidential daily briefing book, and they lie to you and tell you that Obama and Bush read those books every day. They did not. Trump does not every day, and that is because you have the National Security Council in the White House. You have the National Security Advisor right next door to the president, and he sees all of this product. And when he is alerted by the various intelligence agencies, confirmed by the Pentagon, that there is actionable intelligence that the Russians were putting bounties out, then what they will do is present it to the president for a course of action. And the New York Times, knowing that they couldn't wait for that type of verification, just went ahead and cited directly the leaker, very much like the Lieutenant Colonel Vindman bullshit that happened during the Ukrainian call. I mean, they're not sure of everything. Somebody somewhere along the chain, we don't even know what agency it was, leaked this to the New York Times in some kind of desperado Daniel Ellsberg act of betrayal to their nation. And the New York Times just ran with it because there's a powerful storyline: Russia bounty on American troops, which, of course, if true, they're doing a very, very horrible job of carrying it out. The Taliban have entered into an agreement with the United States as of, I think, a couple of months ago, that U.S. troops would not be targeted, and in response, U.S. troops would not target Taliban. So it looks to me that they're trying to prop this evidence up with shady bank dealings. They're finding some electronic transfers of banking information from Russia operated accounts to Taliban leaders. But that's not definitively proving anything, considering the U.S. completely, wholly subsidized the Afghan war against Russia. The fact that we took down like a dozen planes and like 30 helicopters with the Stingers that we gave them, this is a rather disingenuous attempt to be shocked that the Russians don't want us to have peaceful deliberations with the Taliban, that doesn't really work for the Russian government and their interest to hang around the Middle East for longer time, particularly in Syria. So we can just count this thing, and Bolton's probably involved in some capacity. As I pointed out on Twitter today, there was a group, a project, New American something or another, that was put together in the 90s, and it was headed up by a chairman who was the editor of Weekly Standard, Bill Kristol. I'm sure you all know the name from the Lincoln Project. His partner was a man named Hagen, and Hagen was married to a woman named Victoria Nuland. I think if you know Nuland, a rabid ex-Department of State official who worked for Obama, hates Donald Trump, was accused of leaking a lot of stuff out the door. And then, of course, John Bolton was also on the board. So Bill Kristol and John Bolton have a very close relationship. And I think that he was probably a plant all along in anticipation of this development. And I have no doubt that Bolton has mobilized several cells within the intelligence community to try to leak, as he did, the excerpts of his book to the New York Times. And I have no doubt that if any of these leakers are in fact identified, that Jeff Sessions' personal attorney and John Bolton's personal attorney by the name of Chuck Cooper will probably represent the leakers if they are unfortunate enough to be prosecuted by William Barr.
I hope they are.
It would take probably, William Barr would have to take extraordinary measures. The Department of Justice would have to take extraordinary measures to get into the intelligence community and monitor it, because in the intelligence committee they monitor their own through. They run ops on their own people sometimes if they suspect something. They bring in for polygraphs all the time to see if anyone has leaked anything. They check devices, computers, home devices if necessary. That is not going to happen on its own. That's going to take William Barr. It's going to take very specific investigations to be done in concert. And I think now that we have Ratcliffe over there as ODNI, and we have William Barr willing to crack the nut, as he did with opening up the Durham investigation, he knows that he has a very limited, finite period of time to get inside and find out who's leaking this information, which could directly lead to a counterproductive counter-military action against the Russians and lead to destabilizing the region based on discredited intelligence reports leaked to the media. I mean, soldiers' lives are now endangered. Sources and methods have been destroyed in the course of this reporting. The Russians now know which banks we have in our purview that we are monitoring. The Taliban leaders now know which ones that we are monitoring for all their electronic banking information. Listen, they're going to change things up. Sources and methods have been destroyed. If any soldiers are killed on either side, the blood is quite literally on the hands of the leaker, but more so the purveyor and promulgator, and that is the New York Times.
That was a good question, Jen. Good question.
Good questions, disturbing answers.
Right?
Yeah, and you wonder why Trump is frustrated. I mean, that really is it right there. And then what does Trump do is to try to get his blood pressure back under control. He flips on Fox News, and he sees what? Sees Tucker Carlson, a man who is given countless shout outs to, has taken his libertarian bazooka and aimed it right at the Trump administration and the Republican Senate, two places that we can ill afford to suffer losses without the complete deconstruction of our nation and our values and our Constitution. So he seems rather flippant about the whole thing, if you ask me. I have not heard him make any point that could be an act of clarification to assist the Republicans from maybe a botched talking point gone awry, something of that nature. What I see is he used to bring on people like like I said, the liberal professors and mock them, or the Antifa people and mock them. And now he's more interested in getting on a confused first-term senator like Mike Braun and just napalming him, destroying him, which is going to have a ripple effect all the way through the Republican caucus in the United States Senate. He's turned his ire on Lindsey Graham. He's turned his ire on Kevin McCarthy in the House. He doesn't like Tom Cotton because he thinks that he has too much interest in affairs outside of our continent. So I think it's going to. I think Tucker is putting himself in a position where there's not going to be too many Republicans that are interested in talking to Tucker Carlson. He's an antagonist. I think maybe he's working his way back maybe to the networks where he came from, which is CNN and MSNBC. I can honestly see this this going bad, and I can honestly see him doing a big show, with all the bells and whistles, promotional value, right before the election, and saying that he can, in good conscience, endorse or vote for Donald Trump, which is, like I said, not something that he hasn't done before. He did it in 2004. So, listen, if you're a big Tucker fan and you're mad at Republicans for something, you're not helping the big guy, Donald Trump. And I think that's a shame. I think that you take your eye off the ball for some of this picayune shit. Like the bill that Mike Brown was talking about will never get anywhere. I don't even think it would ever get out of a committee, never mind 60 votes for debate. So why humiliate him deliberately? This is to make a point that this is just one thing, that there are other things that he could do similar dissections upon in the Republican. I don't understand where we're going with this. And a lot of people respond. A lot of angry. Get rid of the establishment rhinos. I get it. In case you didn't notice, pretty much all of the primaries are over. Now I ask you, what's the only way? Well, maybe Slider knows the answer to this. So in a general election, Slider, how do we get rid of establishment rhino Republicans?
Don't vote.
We don't vote, and then who wins?
Democrats.
Who learns a lesson then?
Their constituents.
Who learns the lesson then? I just don't get it. I mean, I mean, if you're fine, cutting off your own nose to spite your face, I get it. But just know the consequences are real, and probably never more real. I know we've been hyperbolic for the last how many elections, right? I mean, it's always, this is the end, if it's nothing, I think since, maybe 2004, it's been that way, right? This is the last election for the American soul.
Yeah, it's like this is the most important election in our lifetime.
Yeah, now I can honestly tell you that it is. You put me on one of the CIA's biometric polygraph testing, whatever you want, I can tell you, I will answer honestly that this is, in the history of the country, probably the most important election since maybe Abraham Lincoln's re-election during the war. That is the only time I can find a correlative match.
That's depressing.
Should be motivating, though.
It is.
Well, again, I'm cranky because I don't normally like to go tit for tat. I don't have notifications on Twitter for people that respond to me or anything like that. So I'm pretty much a retweet guy if I see something, or I'm a guy that will put my own stuff out there. I'm not a guy that, I'm not like you used to be the master, and that's how you got suspended, because you would always follow up. you're a pugilist and you wouldn't let them off the hook. Me, I don't even know what they say, so that keeps my blood pressure a little bit lower. But I am trying to follow through with this Tucker stuff because it's, I don't want it to linger out there and let these people try to make some grand counterpoint and think they got the better of me. But it is making me a crankier person, and I am off carbs again, and that is just a dangerous mix, my friend. It is a dangerous mix to have me carb free and reading my reading subtweets. That's a dangerous and combustible situation.
So you're not eating any bread.
Oh God, no bread, no potatoes, and I've really been off beer since this whole thing started. Um, and it's so it's basically a lot of chicken, man. A lot of chicken, and a lot of pork, and asparagus, and cauliflower, and meditation, and vitamin water, which is great, but expensive as shit. You would think I would live to be 110 guaranteed for what you pay for a case of actual vitamin water. I saw a debate question here. Yeah, Biden. Oh no, oh rallies. Yeah, Biden is poo-pooing the rally thing. You wonder why? Biden looked very, very unsteady today. Not only I've noticed that since the primaries, the early primaries anyway, his gait is pretty unsteady. I don't know if you watched him walk out today.
He needs a walker.
Yeah, I mean he's got that,
or a cane.
Yeah, and that's one of the first things they said. There's three things to look for with early cognitive decline. And this could mean dementia. This could mean early onset Alzheimer's. It could mean simply a plaque on the brain, or it could mean residual problems from prior strokes or aneurysms, which we know that he had 2 aneurysms prior. But what happens is the three warning signs. One is the steadiness of the gait of their walk. If they have a shuffly walk, that is one indicator. Another indicator is temperament. If they become flustered and angry very easily, it's because they can't recall something, or it's just their brain just reacts in a way that's atypical for their personality. And of course, the third is just not remembering what you were going to say or why you're there, or long pauses where they try to reorient their thought processes. And you can see clearly in this first press conference in 89 days that this is a cognitive issue. I mean, it's probably neurologically known already. So you got a team of neurologists that are probably saying this is, it's going to be a progressive disease. It's going to regress his abilities over time. How long do we have with it? Then you probably got a couple doctors that say that, could be years. And he's probably got a couple that say, I don't think this is the right thing to do to your body, is try to get all over the country and run for president and deal with that stress. So, I mean, it's not like listen, Hillary basically passed out on her feet, was thrown into the van on 9/11/16 like a bag of, beef. But we kind of went over the top with the Hillary's health thing. So crazy stuff we put out there, and a lot of people were buying it. But in this case, I think most Americans we don't have to do it. I think most Americans are genuinely concerned. Even people who might have sympathy or like Joe Biden have a genuine concern that he is not able to acquire the word that he is searching for, that the pauses are getting so elongated as to make everyone uncomfortable. And he has agreed to do the debates, but he could, even today, it's not the most complicated body to remember. The Presidential Debate Commission. I mean, this is the guy who ran for president 3 times and was vice president for 2 terms. He knows what the Presidential Debate Commission is. But when asked if he agreed to the debates, he could not recall the name of the commission. So he said, yeah, I agreed to 3 debates with the group that sets that stuff up. And then there's one where it's just one-on-one, and then there's one where it's a town hall, and then there's one where it's one-on-one again, and they set the moderators. Like, it was like a guy who could just barely scratch the surface of answering that question, which of course is not exactly a hard question. So I don't see a Ginkgo Biloba response where he's just going to start, getting snappy and sassy out there with his retorts. I think that this is a regressive thing, and I think it's atrophied. This time in the basement has atrophied whatever ability he had, not only physically but mentally.
Yeah, I was looking at videos of just Biden back during the 2016 election, and it's like night and day. It's so bad.
It is, and it gone that quick. And then I've been watching the Iowa and South Carolina footage and matching it up with the stuff that's coming out now, and I see that it's markedly worse, and that's over a period of months, and that's why I refer to it more as an atrophy situation, where he had built up just a little bit of stamina, and then it just sitting in the basement, not being on air more than like 10 minutes a day, and then even making gaffes when doing that. I think it became both a exomuscular skeletal issue, atrophy for real, and which he's going to be 78 in a couple of months. And then, of course, I think something intracranially is going on there that's not good. Yeah, I don't know if you thought this was interesting, Slider, but his response to the Fox News reporter about this cognitive testing, and he's saying he's getting cognitive tested all the time.
Yeah.
Isn't that an odd response?
It is.
Because does anybody get tested for frequent testing on mental acuity or cognitive skills frequently, unless there's already a determination or a diagnosis?
Nope.
Yeah, this just doesn't make any sense. I get my cholesterol checked every 6 months with my blood drawn. That's about as close to a methodical approach that my doctor has to my current health, and I can't imagine he's going to be like, yeah, we need to come in and check your cholesterol every week, unless there was a real problem. Yeah, so Occasions wants to know what I think about the next or his vice presidential pick. I think that's got to be Kamala Harris, only because they've got to have somebody that can get across the country, that can raise money. I think her favorability numbers are going to drag. They're not good. Elizabeth Warren has a different subset or faction of the Democrat Party to motivate. I think she could be helpful with that. I think she's a great fundraiser compared to Kamala Harris. But she's also white and from the Northeast and has a history of getting rattled by Trump's approach to her. I think Kamala Harris is probably the favorite right now. And I don't know how that's going to improve the situation much for Joe Biden. I mean, if you're going to have to make Kamala Harris the face of your campaign, it's essentially what the Democrats feared. They did not want Kamala Harris to be the nominee because they knew she could not hold up against the president. And so if you're going to use her as a de facto presidential nominee, I think the president comes out on top of that one. Yeah, exactly. Big Ralph. She will help win California. Yeah, that'll be razor thin, and yeah, it's kind of funny. Smiley face included, of course. A little sarcastic, but Biden's going to slip up, media will cover. I mean, yeah, but see, that's the thing. It's all public, and Twitter could clamp down, Facebook could clamp down. It very well could come that Duckworth is barely functional as a person. Duckworth as a VP would be an absolute disaster, and that's the state of Illinois, which is just a freaking disaster in and of itself. So I think Duckworth would be the dumbest thing to do, outside of like AOC. So they're just naming anyone of color, and that was like Brunei that said that, and a moron. So what I was going to say is, we need to have that place that we can hammer this every time he messes it up. Just hammer it, because listen, what did Reddit permanently ban the Donald? What happened there? Are you up to speed on that?
Last I heard it was, but I didn't check on it for most of the day. They took down, I think, a left-wing site as well, but
Tit for tat crap, try to make it look even.
yeah,
Well, to me, they want to create a vacuum to where we cannot get out this footage of Joe Biden. And I think that's another one of these false fail-safes fallback with having an app, going through all the trouble that you're doing, and to be able to highlight every time one of these things happens and just get it out there right away, and just keep doing it to where they can't shake it down fast enough and the hashtags take off. I mean, that's the key. We have to have a centralized focal point. So we all have our notifications on for Donald Trump, maybe when he tweets, we see it. But where else do we have a focalized point that we can go? Other than just, seeing tweets that we like and retweeting or whatever, but we don't have that focalized issue. And someone's got to start doing it. I believe that we can play a small part in that. And I'm interested in working with this quick breaking news type of, look what happened, let's get it out there type of thing. Because the people that used to do that with me, they're off the reservation now. I mean, I don't even know what they're doing as far as this presidential campaign is concerned on Twitter. They're not interested in the generation of trending hashtags. They're not interested in defending, the president versus his enemies. They seem more interested in getting these, retweets and selling vitamins and what the fuck not, we're not set up like we were in 2016. I see, which is very disturbing, and I want to get to this before I have to get off. I don't know if you've seen this, and I don't know if it's in any way sanctioned or even appreciated by General Flynn, but this absurd digital soldier
take the oath with the where we go.
It is absolutely the antithesis of what Republican Twitter users should be doing right now. I mean, first of all, you look and sound like an idiot. And secondarily, you're affirming by oath that all you plan on doing is being a digital warrior. And what have I said since we got Trump elected? Trump is the only digital warrior that matters. And half the time, that ain't even good anymore. So if you think you're going to tweet your way to victory, I think it's just a cop-out. I think it's just like, I'm a certified digital warrior, which means I'm going to stay on Facebook, and I'm going to get an account on Parler, and I'm going to stay on Twitter, and I'm going to say vote Trump. And you're not going to go to a volunteer office and make phone calls. You're not going to go knock on doors for Trump. You're going to put yard signs out for Trump when people request them. Your plan is to what? You don't want to be a poll watcher. You don't want to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. You want to take an oath to be a digital warrior. Holy God. It's almost like coming full circle, like getting lost in the woods,
On a snipe hunt.
Yeah, on a snipe hunt. But I got a compass, because I think I know what I'm doing. you know, and we win 16, and I come out swinging right away. Disassociate from the alt right, get rid of that branding. It's going to cost us, you know. I feel I've got a good sense, and most of my sensibilities were, you know, in line. I'm walking. I'm trying to lead people on a trail to where re-election is going to be a certainty. And I find myself right back to where I started in 2016. I walked us all in a circle. That's what it makes me feel like, in my own small part. Because if anyone who follows me, or anyone who is a follower of my Twitter account or my Periscope, takes a digital soldier oath, I have failed inherently and completely failed in my mission. And frankly, not a lot of them do, that are my followers. But to see that this is just embarrassing. It really is. I just
Boots on the ground wins wars.
Yeah, boots on the ground, not boots on the keyboard, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think the next thing that we see here, the Scott Adams, the Cernoviches, and the Tuckers, and all these types of people, what they're going to do is start to encroach upon this temporary territory of we are going to call for dramatic changes in a way. The Republicans are going to do this, and Trump's going to do this, and if they don't, they're going to lose, because they want to kind of occupy this territory of we tried to save the administration and no one listened. They think that this is going to assert some level of expertise or believability from those who follow them. And in a military-like sense, really what they're doing is trapping themselves on a little atoll in the South China Sea at the end of World War II. Because they're not, I mean, if they're right and their only mission is to be right, the result of the war is they don't even know it's over. And they can continue to fight on their little atoll if they want to. But the fact is, the war is over. And Biden had won, and God forbid the Senate goes +1 Democrat, or even 50-50, which is enough to destroy the cloture. The filibuster's gone. Do they understand, or don't they realize that they're just going to be sitting there on this tiny little island that they think the war is still raging, tweeting out while eating MREs? It doesn't make any sense to me. I think there's a certain level of delusion that's being played out here. And I'm not going to trade in it. Just not going to do it. High Turbine is a county chairman. I did not know that. I am a former county chairman myself, and state committee man. Not easy to deal with the idiots we find in our own state GOP party. All right. So before I wrap this thing up on my end anyway, I'm going to ask for two things. You follow this account on the Periscope side. It's not hard. Just click down here. The 3 buttons on this, hit follow. It's not hard. So I unfollowed and refollowed them so that you can all see what to do. 3 little buttons down there in the right-hand corner. Click them and follow this To the Republic account. And on the YouTube side, it is quite easy to subscribe and keep the bell on. I'd appreciate if you would do that. I think by tonight, I'd be very disappointed if we did not have over 200 subscribers for your channel. And I've talked to Slider about this. This is not about getting to a 2,000 or 1,000 or whatever it is for Super Chat. That is not what this is about. This is enhancing our ability to kind of explain why an app, a well-constructed app, a compliant app available to everybody with an iPhone or an Android is a much stronger, much more tethered structure to withstand the storm that is coming politically through the social media platforms. So, but this is also a good way to get the message out, and may frequently or infrequently become a way that we do multiple platforms. Maybe we extend this out to Twitch. Maybe we do a little D-Live. I don't know. We'll probably will. I think the Alabama Center for Coaches, he's probably disappointed that Trump is not coming down to stick the boot on the throat of Sessions because of all the COVID issues. But knowing that we only got 2 weeks, I don't think Sessions has the money to mount a comeback with a 12, 13-point deficit. So this might be the form that, and we talked about this before, Slider, this might be the form that we do, because Slider's going to have a lot of technical capabilities to run a whole lot of stuff behind the screen, under the screen, behind me, potentially. We might not be able to do rolling video, but at least we'll be able to do the voter counts down in Alabama. So in two weeks exactly, I guess, that might be something we can work up. Sound good to you?
Yeah, that'll be fun. That will definitely be fun.
It better be fun by the end with the results.
Right.
I'll tell you that. So anyway, subscribe YouTube, follow Periscope. I'll leave these up on my timeline. Watch them, and just download the app. I think is the easiest thing to do to make sure you know where we're going. Does Steve Daines need a donation? Yeah, I think what the Democrats are doing in Montana is just pretty disgusting. Steve Daines could probably use some money, but I think you want to get past the last of the primaries, and I'm giving my money, what very few dollars I have, I'm giving to Tommy Tuberville. Let me pull that up here right now so you know where to go. Where is that? I get so many damn fundraising text messages, it's out of control. Okay, that's just go to Google, punch in Tuberville. Donate. Punch in Tuberville or Tommy Tuberville donations in Google or DuckDuck, whatever you use. And you can go to Tuberville for U.S. Senate, and you can donate 10, 20, 30, 40. That will help him shore up his last 2 weeks of advertising. That's the only race that, besides Donald Trump, that I would give money to. Big day today. If you want to give money now, it's great. But the quarter ended at midnight, and so that was why you were getting all those emails and maybe some phone calls and text because the Trump wants some big small donation numbers to show off, because he's going through a rough time, and he wants to show that people still support him. And that's not about retweets. That's about reoccurring donors, small donors. That always shows the power. So let Obama and Elizabeth Warren try to float Joe Biden with their virtual fundraisers. I think our key is to stave off the depression that some people want to feel, is to not allow the media to ignore the fact that Trump is outraising Biden. So I think it's important that you give money to Donald Trump first and foremost. And for the next 2 weeks anyway, I would really appreciate it if you would all give $20 or $50, whatever you can afford, to Coach Tuberville down there, so we can send that message to Jeff Sessions that you started this whole mess, man. We wouldn't be here right now. We would not be down 10 points in these polls. We would not be down 7 points if it wasn't for you. And General Flynn never would have been charged in the first place if it wasn't for your ignorance and letting that happen while you were sworn in Attorney General, and you lied about it and said that it was not under your watch when you were in there, sworn in February 6th, and he was forced out February 14th. So you're a liar, Jeff Sessions, and hopefully karma is going to pay its due. So with that, I would just encourage, if you haven't followed both these platforms, do so, and go to your Apple store or whatever it is that Google Android uses, I don't know, and download To the Republic app. I guarantee you'll find some content there sooner rather than later from me. I am not making any money out this. I believe in this guy. That's why I'm putting it out there. This is not a Brax.me or just any of these goddamn disasters that people have been through. This is an actual app that I think once up and running with full power is going to be someplace that we can use as a launching pad for a lot of our Twitter activity. So it's not like it's disassociative from Twitter. It's actually an all-encompassing news-producing app that kicks out and generates the hashtags that we need to make the stories go viral. So it's a hell of an idea. And plus, the other stuff I've already agreed to do, which is do some embedded videos that are just there, that are kind of instructive or tutorial in nature, and just go over how you work the system of registering voters, what materials can be had from your state or local GOP, and what materials can be had from your county offices of voter election boards. All that kind of stuff I think we'll get into sooner rather than later. This is the place I want to do it, because I don't want to have to worry about constantly trying to kick that up my timeline on Twitter. It's much better to have it embedded someplace where somebody can go and click on it. That is all I have, my friend Slider.
That's all I got.
With that, I'm going to have Slider kill the feed, and we will see you collectively or in a singular fashion soon enough. I appreciate everybody sharing it out, and of course following on YouTube and Periscope. We're not going to leave you hanging, okay? We're in this and in it for the long haul, and I'm not here to criticize the president. I'm not here to criticize Republican senators for things that'll never become law. I'm here to try to answer what's floating out there that's false, and try to clarify that and get everybody back on track, motivated. Enthusiasm gap has got to be bigger for us than Biden. So thanks for tuning in, and maybe I'll get that webcam so I can look as pretty as Slider over there.
Woohoo!
Yeah. All right. I look jaundiced. I don't
do.
know what the hell's going on here. Jesus. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to kill my feet.
All right, thanks, Adam.
All right. We'll see you.
All right, guys. There's going to be an update for that app coming in. It'll probably update automatically. You won't have to go there and push update, but if you have to, just go to your John and upload that and